Welcome to Thoughts Off the Stem. I'm Justin, and today we're smoking Jamaican sativa. It's an 80-20 mix. 80% sativa, 20% indica. It's a mother strain, apparently, and the THC content is about 21%. Feels like it, and it is definitely a sativa. Picks you up, gets you going, but it definitely has that crash at the end of the day. Yeah, it definitely does. But I'm feeling good right now. It's a nice, tasty bowl. Hope you guys are doing good. So, in the last episode, I talked a little bit about poppers. So, I figured in this episode, we should talk more about poppers. This is going to be kind of like, I guess, a public service announcement more than anything. So, when I was in my 20s, I had gone to university for a year, dropped out, went to work for a year, then started university again. When I started university, obviously I was early on in my weed smoking days, so we were smoking mostly joints, I guess you could say. Yeah, no, mostly joints. The occasional pipe was passed around. I wasn't really into bongs at that point. I found them too harsh. We tried buckets once, and I was stoned for, holy shit, I was stoned for like all day. I told the guy as soon as I took the hit, I looked at him, I was like, I'm not moving. And I stayed there. So, but then at some point, I started working at the local golf course. And I was working in the locker room, and I worked closely with one of the maintenance guys. He was only a couple years older than me. I found out that he grew weed, and it was a decent price. So I started buying weed off him. But his thing, when he smoked weed, the only way he smoked it, and I'm sure to this day, I don't talk to him anymore, but I'm sure to this day he still smokes it the same way, in a popper. Now, if you don't know what a popper is, it's not a type of weed, even though it's a method. It's a distribution method. So it's like a cross between a bong, a water pipe, and like a one-shotter, okay? So you take a bottle, like let's say, a regular sized Coke bottle, not the 2 liters, not a liter, whatever the other 500 milliliters or 750, whatever that is. So you take one of those, you take a glass tube, preferably. His was a disgusting metal lamp broad thing. I don't know, it was the internal workings of a lamp. He'd taken it out, it was a metal tube. What you do is you burn a hole in the Coke bottle or the bottle that you have, provided it's plastic. If not, you have to drill it. But the easiest way to do it is you take a Coke bottle, you burn a hole in it about the size of the tube, just a little bit larger. You take that metal tube or the glass tube, you put it through the hole. Then what we did, was you tie it off with duct tape so that it's totally sealed off. Now, what you do is you fill the bottle with a little bit of water so that it catches everything that you burn off through the tube. Okay, I know it seems like a really big thing, but it's not a really big thing. It really only takes a couple seconds to put together. But anyway, when you duct tape it off, it cuts off all the air and all that stuff. So then what you do when you're ready to smoke is you take, well, what we did is we would cut off like a tiny little piece of cigarette. When I say tiny, it's like smaller than your fingernail. Okay, and then you take a little piece of weed, you'd put the cut off piece of cigarette into the pipe. Okay, you push that down a little bit with like the tip of scissors or something like that. Then you would load the remainder of the hole with about the same amount of weed, maybe a little bit more, so about the size of your fingernail. Once that was loaded up, you'd burn it until it popped all the way through the pipe into the water in the bottle. And you take this massive one-shot hit. And I'm telling you, I think I said last time, when you take it the first time, it's like a 99% chance that you're greening the fuck out right away. Because it's just such a massive shot. And if you don't smoke cigarettes, it's worse. And you could do it without a cigarette, because I know people that have, but it's way harder. Because like the cigarette essentially, because it's wrapped in paper, acts as like footing for the weed to sit on, or like a shelf. Whereas if you put the weed in, it has to be relatively fresh. You can't put dry weed in, it'll just fall right through. But if you do it without a cigarette, if you have really fresh, sticky weed, you can do it with just the weed. But either way you do it, it's like taking a shot straight to the face of, I don't know, like the highest concentrated thing you could possibly think of. It was insane. It put you out in no time. Like as soon as you took that hit, inhaled it, sat back, exhaled it, and then like leaned into the chair and really relaxed, you were fucked. So, after meeting this guy, that's what I started to do. So he would do these every day. After work, we'd get off work at like 2:30 in the afternoon. We'd go up to his place, pick up his dog, go for a 2-hour hike through like the woods along these train tracks at the north end of town. Then we'd go back to his house, which was like a small little one-room bungalow. And the main floor was a kitchen, a living room, and like a front room. And then the basement was his bedroom and a laundry room. So we would sit in there for fucking hours, just popper after popper after popper after popper. And when I first started doing them, you could do one or two, and like I said, be high for pretty much the entire fucking day. So once we did a couple of them, it was just me staring at a wall and him burning through, I don't know, probably like 3 grams a day, easily, on this stuff. But then as everything sort of progressed and I hung out with him more and we kept smoking and stuff, I graduated away, or I moved away from, not physically, but like instead of smoking with my buddies and residents at the university, I would go over to this other guy's house and smoke poppers for hours and hours and just come home blazed out of my head, not knowing what was going on. And then it just became the only way that I could smoke weed and get really high or get high at all was by smoking poppers. So when I say that poppers are like the crack of weed, it's not the fact that it's like a different kind of weed that gets you super fucking high. It's the delivery method that gets you super fucking high. And it becomes the crack of weed. You can't not have it. Because I did it for, let's see here. Okay, so I started smoking poppers when I was like 21. And then by the time I was 25, that was all I could really smoke. Like, it's not all I could smoke, but it was the only thing that would get me acceptably high in my standard. So, first of all, at some point you have to realize that that's a problem. That's not a fucking good thing, to be at the point where you're like, nothing else works. That's when you have a problem. So, luckily for me, I ended up moving out of that town to a different town for a little bit to take a job. That gave me the buffer to not to have weed all the time. 2, not smoke poppers all the time. So slowly, over like the course of, I'd say 2 years, after smoking poppers every day for like 3 or 4 years, I say it took me probably a good 2 years to get to the point where I could smoke a joint and get high from it and not crave a popper. It sets off addiction, man. A popper is a bad thing to do. It took, like I said, it took about 2 or 3 years to fully stop having to need a popper at some point in the day. Because I'd smoke a joint, whatever, with some buddies and whatnot, but then I would have to go like and do a popper almost after, just to get to the level that they were at, because I was smoking too many poppers a day and getting way too fucked up. But that's the other thing that makes it kind of like crack like, is that in the beginning you smoke, like this tiny little fingernail amount of weed and you get high for 4 or 5 hours. Okay? But then over the course of like 6 months, all of a sudden you realize that you're doing like 3 poppers at a time, and then you're high for 4 or 5 hours. And then it goes from there 6 months later, and you're no longer high for 4 or 5 hours. What you do is you end up doing like 3 poppers, and then, 20 minutes later, another 3 poppers and another 3 poppers. So when you first started and this whole situation was nice and economical because you could buy a dime bag and you could smoke that for like 3 days, has now become, you're smoking at least, well, I mean, it depends on how much you smoke, but you're smoking like 40-50 bucks a day. See what I'm saying? Very crack like, right? And then there's when you try to get off it, or when you don't have it, or when you don't have the option, it's like full on addiction. You freak the fuck out. You find ways. I mean, I'm not saying I did anything crazy, like, suck some dick for some weed or anything like that. I'm just saying that it it brings that out of you. Like, it gets you right animalistic. It is a fucked up way to smoke weed. Weed is not about that. Weed is all about relaxing and having a good time, having a few laughs, and enjoying company. Poppers make you want to find a dark room. A crack house would be perfect. Lay on the floor, wake up, do 3 or 4 poppers, pass the fuck out again, play some video games, do 3 or 4 poppers, pass the fuck out again. So stay away from poppers. Don't even start doing them. It's not fucking worth it. You can find many other ways to get nice and tuned without having to, blow up your whole fucking world for a couple quick hits. Because the long run of that is definitely an addiction. Because, okay, going back to what I said before, it took me 3 years to get off doing poppers. And what I mean is, for the first little bit, I couldn't smoke a joint. Like, I would smoke a joint, and then I'd still have to smoke a bunch of poppers to get high. That took months, till finally what I was able to do was smoke a joint here and there. But I'd still have to have, I'd have to have a couple poppers maybe in the morning, then I could smoke a joint in the day, and a couple poppers before bed. And then it filtered off to, okay, now it's just, poppers at bed, until finally, oh, no, you know what, that's kind of a lie. Because I actually transitioned to the bong. That's where my love of bongs came in. Because you could get such a big hit in such a short amount of time, what I figured out was, after the first 6-8 months of trying to stop poppers and smoke joints, I realized if I had a bong, it would mimic the popper, not be quite as long a high, not quite as deep a high, but it was satisfying, and definitely way cleaner, way easier to clean. So I started doing that till I got to the point where I didn't need the poppers anymore, which probably took about a year and a half. And then I was able, after 2 years, to just go and smoke a joint with people and just be cool. So fucking stay away from goddamn poppers, because they take you down a very shitty fucking road. Yeah, don't do them if you don't have to. Do other shit. Do dabs, man. Those things get you fucked up. Those are perfect. On top of that, you clean a bong, and sometimes, people let their bongs get a little dirty. I'm not saying I do. I'm totally saying I do. I let my bong get too dirty sometimes. Most of the time. I've been trying to work on it and keep it cleaner. But you could keep those clean pretty easily. A popper bottle, you can't. It's disgusting. Okay, there was one point where I was taking pulls off a popper bottle. The guy's house that I worked with, way back in my 20s. His bottle was so disgusting, he never cleaned it. So all the cigarette, all the weed ash, everything would just fall through this hole, right, into the water. And there were times when we would smoke hits off that water, and you'd look at it, and that shit looked like fucking grease. Used grease. Or an oil, sorry. You ever seen an oil change? You ever seen what comes out of that oil change? That's what it looked like. It was fucking disgusting. He'd never changed the bottle, so the bottle was covered in nicotine and whatever other stains were in it. It was gross, man. It was disgusting. It is not, as much as I said last time I don't really like pipes, I'll take a pipe now any day over a fucking popper. Stay away from poppers. They're bad news for everyone. But they do get you really, really fucking stoned. I'm sure that you could actually find a decent popper bottle at a head shop. I'm sure they have glass ones. I'm sure they have plastic ones that are good. But the homemade DIY do-it-yourself shit, man. Most people don't clean that. It is disgusting. In terms of tolerance, I guess it depends on what you want out of your weed. If you want to go balls to the wall and get so blown out that you don't know what the shit is going on, then poppers are the way to go. Do them all day. Because you can honestly, if you take 1 or 2 poppers, you could stare at a wall like Putty and Seinfeld at the back of that seat, and you're perfectly happy. But that's where I figured out when I was doing poppers. I think it was a way more so to just like push off the shit that was bugging me because it was such a heavy high. So like you didn't have to deal with anything ever because everything was just you were so super stoned. It was you basically put yourself in your own fucking psych ward, drugged to the gills. So don't do that. Yeah, don't do poppers. They're not the way to go. So, find better ways to do it. Smoke a joint, do a dab, get a vape pen, do something else. Do a bucket for fuck's sake. Like at least in that case, you're changing out the bowl every shot. At least you're keeping it somewhat hygienic. Popper bottles, the ones that I've seen, none of them are that hygienic. And like, you know, it's not yeah, it's not worth it. Don't do poppers. That's my public service announcement for poppers and the episode for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join me every Friday at 4:20 for another episode of Thoughts Off the Stem. I always do that. Check out the podcast merch at teespring.com/stores/tots420. That's TOTS 420. We've got some awesome stuff up there. Some Weed Sommelier hoodies. They're really tight hoodies. They're nice. What else? My Big Buds t-shirts and Thoughts Off the Stem all over print. Yeah, man. So if you like weed, you like the podcast, support it. Go check out our stuff. And until next time, roll them up, load a bowl, stay high.